So CourierDepot.com are here at National Highways and introduce you to Mark Cartwright. Now you're going to have to tell me, Mark, your title, because you've got two very long titles and I don't want to get it wrong.
I've got two wonderful job titles, Justin. Thanks for asking. I'm the team leader, the head of National Highways Commercial Vehicle Incident Prevention Team. Team of project managers fundamentally looking for initiatives, wizard wheezes, good ideas to try and reduce the number of incidents on our network on roads in the UK involving commercial vehicles that are being driven for work. And I always like this job title because my mum is so proud. I've actually got a job title that's got the word responsible in it. I'm the Senior Responsible Officer, there's a civil service term, for our Driving for Better Business awareness campaign. DFBB, as we tend to refer to it, is about creating and making available a whole suite of resources for people using commercial vehicles, cars being driven for work, to help them identify the levels of risk, and also importantly providing some really good tools to allow them to get to grips with them. So two job titles, both quite long. I've got a very long and narrow business card.
Right. Now, obviously at CourierDepot.com, we're focusing on the courier market.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I remember in previous conversations, we've talked about braking distance for vans, etc. And I remember that conversation so well. I think it'd be really handy for our transport managers who run fleets of vans to have an idea, just to put that sense of perspective in place.
Yeah.
If you could just run that past me again for our audience, that'd be terrific.
It's really difficult in the van space to talk about stopping distances and speed and all the rest of it. And one of the things that we're very conscious of, as soon as we talk about speed, and speed has a massive impact, if you excuse the pun, on the severity of incidents. And that's all about the way that the force is disseminated, the way the force is distributed at the time of impact. So you start talking to people about speed and they automatically start thinking about, the stopping distances that they remembered from their highway code all those years ago. Well, they're based on cars. Vans could be a different weight at a different time, so it's not really a fair comparison from that point of view. We always talk about the appropriateness of speed. I don't know what an appropriate speed for your vehicle to be driving down this particular road at this particular time in this particular circumstances is. What I know is what it isn't, and what it isn't is not above the speed limit for that vehicle and road. So what we're trying to get people to do is think about it. So the scenario we use, and it's a bit make-believe this, but you'll get the message, I think, is if we look down at a piece of road, we've got two vehicles, doesn't matter what they are, in lane one, lane two. Vehicle in lane one is doing 70 mile an hour. Mm-hmm. Vehicle in lane two is doing 100 mile an hour. All of a sudden, an obstacle appears in front of him. It could be a tree that's fallen down, a big hole that appears, whatever. Yep. Both drivers hit the brakes at the same time. Now, it's important to stress everything in this scenario is exactly the same, except for the initial speed of the vehicle, 70 mile an hour, 100 mile an hour vehicle. The 70 mile an hour vehicle manages to stop just before it gets to the obstruction. How fast was the 100 mile an hour vehicle when it goes over the edge? Bearing in mind there was a 30 mile an hour speed differential when we started. Mm-hmm. What's the speed of impact? And the answer is about 73, 74 mile an hour. And that surprises an awful lot of people, because the reality of it is you don't lose speed in a linear fashion, you lose speed exponentially in relation to the level of force, kinetic energy, which was there at the start of the incident. And the reality of it is we can look at our stats and we know that a minor difference in speed actually makes very, very little difference to journey time. Mm-hmm. So why put yourself at that added risk of pushing the envelope, pushing the edge, if you like, of the speed? It's just think about it, be sensible.
Sure. Stretch that envelope a little bit wider. You've got vans with various loads. Mm. They could be a light load, could be a heavy load of parcels, which also, because they're not strapped down when they're delivering, those are movable. Well, I mean, is there anything you can add in respect of that in terms of load, distribution of weight, etc., etc.?
Load distribution, load security is an issue. We know that there's an awful lot of vans out on our roads, across all the trades, not just couriers. We know there's an awful lot of vehicles on our roads, awful lot of vans on our roads who are overloaded. If you take engineers' vans, civil engineers' vans, they collect things. They start off with a van that comes out of the bodybuilder and is first deployed with them, and it'll be perfect. It'll be just below 3.5 tonne. And the nature is they'll collect things, and that vehicle will be over weight limits. That's an offence apart from anything else. The other issue in there is how well that load secured, because to be it's something we're all aware of, but that loose load behind you could be the thing that actually kills or injures you as a driver in the crash. So it makes no sense to me to have that load insecured in there, and a relatively light load at speed could be fatal.
Yep.
You know, it also adds to the insecurity, not the insecurity, it also adds to the instability potentially of a vehicle. If you're braking hard to avoid an incident, you've got a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
The last thing you want is a vehicle that's rocking and rolling around a bit because the load's moving behind you and making it even more unstable at a time where you're actually trying to keep that vehicle under control.
No, totally.
So I know it's a challenge in the courier market, I know that, multi-drops, etc., but at least apply a degree of common sense to the way that that load is distributed in the back of your vehicle and the way that that load is secured in the back of the vehicle, because it really could make a difference.
Yeah, big time. I mean, we talked earlier on about the CPCs for HGV drivers, a far more regulated environment. But the van driver, they jump in. It could be their first day on the job, and they've got several hundred kilos behind them without understanding the ramifications, were they not to take that into account in how they drive the vehicle.
It's a really interesting point, to be honest. It's something I hear too often, if I'm being honest, is, oh, it's a van, the HGV laws don't apply to me, the HGVs. The reality of it is pretty much every piece of legislation that applies to an HGV also applies to a van.
Yeah.
There are equivalents or the same bit of legislation. They don't need to be operator licensed, I get that. But there are laws in there about the way that the load is carried, the weight limits, the speed of that vehicle, the construction and use requirements of the vehicle, the roadworthiness requirements of that vehicle. And the one that escapes a lot of people is there are driver's hours rules in relation to vans. People just think they only apply to trucks. They don't. There are rules that apply to vans. And actually, in some respects, they're more onerous than the ones that apply to HGVs. So that's a message that I'd really like to put out to your viewers, Justin, is don't think there are no rules and regs attached to these vehicles. There absolutely are. And they're all prosecutable. Road transport legislation is prosecutable on a jointly and severally basis.
Right.
So yes, they'll prosecute the driver, almost certainly. If the blue lights turn up, the driver's there, probably bang to rights. But they do always have the ability to track that legislation back to the organisation, to individuals within that organisation, to the corporate entity, bring prosecutions there. And that's before we get onto the health and safety side of it and the potential of, health and safety prosecutions against organisations, which, to be blunt, aren't a bundle of fun if you're on the receiving end of it.
Just want to touch on the Driving for Better Business initiative.
Yep.
Can you explain a bit more about that?
Yeah, Driving for Better Business is on international highways. It's a brand that we use. It's all about trying to provide materials to organisations to help them understand their road risk exposure. And once they've understood that road risk exposure, giving them some tools to actually deal with it and to manage it properly. So if you play that into the courier space, awful lot of vans being operated in the courier space. One of the things that's been getting an enormous amount of support from our community within Driver for Better Business is our Van Driver Toolkit resource.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I was going to pick up on that in just a moment.
We've been working on this for a couple of 3 years now, but it's fundamentally a really straightforward, really plainly written, down-to-earth advisory resource about all the different issues that we think that van drivers and van operators ought to know about, from speed limits to hours to winter preparation to distraction issues, all the rest of it, written in a very straightforward, accessible language, supported by bits of video, supported by toolbox talks already made in there.
Right.
And something we're really proud of, we launched a couple of months ago now, is our Policy Builder Toolkit. Now, this isn't just available and doesn't work just in the van space, it's for any type of vehicle, but it's really getting traction with van operators. We know that an awful lot of operators don't have viable policies around the kind of things that they should have policies about.
Right.
So they can be difficult to write. They can be difficult to write if you're a small business and you haven't got the resource and necessarily the expertise. So we've written them. We've put them in a template style.
Fantastic.
You can make a few changes to them if it suits your business. Okay. You can top and tail them with your logos, with your company's names, the dates, etc., etc. They've all been validated by industry experts and legal support and all the rest of it. They're a brilliant resource for an organisation to help set those policies out. And as more and more organisations get nudged towards some of the accreditation programmes that are out there, it's actually can form the basis of that accreditation approach. So I'd encourage your viewers to have a look at drivingforbetterbusiness.com. All of the resources are there, from Van Driver Toolkit, Policy Builders, etc., etc. And as you probably gathered, we like talking, we like getting engaging with people.
So it's always a pleasure talking to you.
Absolutely, but if there are ideas, if there are comments, if there's feedback, please get in touch. We're very happy to talk.
Definitely. And I think that drives Van Toolkit, it will give you know, the guy who's got 5 or 6 vans starting out, it gives them, you know, a guidelines on how to operate.
Yeah.
And the instructions to give to their drivers. You know, the first step forward is the best step forward.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
It's something I've been wedded to for quite a while, to be honest, Justin, is that it's a lot easier to get the right kind of practices and the right kind of mindset in place from day one than it is to try and retrofit them afterwards to an organisation who has settled into ways of operating and settled into the ways that they do things. So absolutely, I'd echo that. One of the things we found with the policy builder in particular was quite interesting. We kind of wrote it with the idea of somebody starting from scratch. But we also know there's an awful lot of organisations, some of which are quite a bit bigger than these micro SME operators and SME operators that we wrote it for in mind, have used it as a tool to check against their own existing policies and have maybe highlighted a few shortfalls, a few gaps in their policies, which they're plugging because they've checked against our policies, which we think are a pretty complete, pretty robust set of policies. So there's, you know, a couple of 3 different ways people can use it.
So Mark, it's been really enjoyable talking to you. How do you see the relationship of National Highways with couriersdepot.com?
We're really pleased to be working with you. It's a developing relationship. One of the real challenges for us is to get our message and our support out to the sharp end, if you like, with the operator, and working with organisations like yourselves who've got a strong client base to carry our message to your clients works really well for us, because with any luck, if we get it right, we're happy.
Yeah.
Because we've got our information where we want to get our information to, where hopefully it might make a little bit of a difference, shine a bit of a light on some of the issues. From your point of view, I hope it's part of your engagement process, part of what you offer to your clients, which is fantastic. And at the end of the day, if it helps avoid a single incident amongst your client base, happy days, we're all winners.
Yeah, I think it's like anything with initiatives or, you know, whatever's going on out there. It's spreading the message and raising awareness. And that can only be a good thing.
And the biggest thing for us, I know we've touched on this previously, it's about professionalism. It's about that van driver, van operator realising that they're engaged in what at the end of the day is actually quite a risky activity, and doing it to the absolute best of their ability from a safety point of view. And between us, we can make a difference.
Brilliant. Thanks, Mark. Lovely talking to you.